Good evening, my little creatures of the night. Mr. Wendigo back again with your late night creature feature. Before we begin, I'm curious. Where are you listening from tonight? Alone in your room? Driving through empty roads? Drop a comment and let me know. I like knowing who's out there in the dark with me. Now then, let's see what tonight's tale brings us. Lockhart and Valentine, Episode 1. Prologue, Southern Oklahoma. The red dirt stuck to everything. Kendra was 5 3/4 years old that summer, old enough to know the fence line, young enough to still believe Mama when she said don't go past it. The heat pressed down hard. Cicadas screamed from the mesquite trees. The pump jack down the road went up and down, all day long. Don't go past the fence, Mama called from the porch. The clothesline snapped in the wind. White sheets hung there, drying. I hear you, Kendra said. She heard everything out here. The cicadas, the pump jack, the creek where Daddy said cottonmouths nested. Sometimes she heard the church bell in town when the wind came right. Mama hummed while she worked, some hymn from Sunday mornings. The sound made the heat easier to take. Beyond the fence, the pasture sloped down to blackjack oaks and one old cottonwood. The bark was gray and rough. Kendra sat in its shade at supper time and lined up her plastic horses. Today, she took the dapple mare and the bay stud and the little foal missing one leg where Bubba ran over it with the mower. The horses had names. The mare was Starlight. The stud was Thunder. The foal was just Baby. She set them facing the fence, watching for Daddy to come home. He'd be back soon. The sun was already orange. She'd hear his truck first, the rattle and the cough of the engine that needed work. Then she'd run to meet him and he'd swing her up and call her little bean. The first time she noticed the man, she thought he was Daddy's friend. He stood on the other side of the fence, tall, hat brim low, too far to see right. He didn't move. The grass around his boots didn't bend. The cicadas went quiet, all at once. Howdy, she said. The man didn't move. His hat brim hit his face. Kendra looked back at the porch where Mama was hanging another sheet. The sound felt far away now. You can't be there, Kendra said. That's Daddy's fence. The hat lifted, not by his hand, just up. She saw pale skin, eyes like cloudy glass, no lashes. A fly crawled into his mouth and didn't come out. Kendra scooted back into the cottonwood shadow. The horses fell over. She wanted to call Mama, but also didn't want to. The man hadn't moved. He didn't bend the grass. But she could feel him. Her chest felt tight. The air tasted like pennies. Sir? She tried again. We gotta go eat soon. The hat lifted higher. The mouth opened. Too slow. There was no tongue, just dark. The fly came back out, dragging something behind it. Kendra! Mama shouted from the porch. Dinner! Kendra blinked. The man was gone. Just the fence and the pump jack and the cottonwood. The cicadas started up again. She left the horses and ran. She didn't look back. Inside, the kitchen smelled like fried okra and onions. Bubba had grass on his socks and was talking about football practice. Daddy unlaced his boots with a tired sigh. Every normal sound helped. Bubba flicked okra at her and grinned. He was 11 and mean the way older brothers got to be. His hair stuck up in the back. You got a ghost in your hair, he said. Do not, she said, but reached up anyway. A cottonwood leaf fell into her palm. Wash up, Mama said. Kendra stood on the stool and ran her hands under the tap. The water turned red from the dust. When she looked up, the kitchen window was black. Her face floated in it. The lights made a rectangle behind her. The cottonwood shadow looked wrong. The pump jack went up and down. Something else moved. At first she thought it was Mama, but Mama was at the stove. Bubba was at the table. Daddy was in the doorway, smoking. The shape in the window was taller. The hat brim felt sharp. "Kendra," Daddy said. "You hear me, girl?" "Yes, sir." I said, "Get to the table." She turned off the tap and walked to her chair. Bubba kicked her under the table. Daddy tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and she almost cried with relief. Dinner was 3 prayers long that night. Mama's quick blessing, Daddy's quiet one, Kendra's own whispered sorries to nobody in particular. "Pack your things tomorrow," Mama said after okra and before pie. "Aunt Trish says the extra room's cleaned out. We'll head to Fort Worth Saturday. Daddy starts Monday." Bubba whooped. He rattled off street names from the map he'd memorized. Kendra tried to whoop too, but it felt wrong. Fort Worth meant leaving. The cottonwood would stand alone. She helped Mama with dishes and didn't look at the window. After pie, Daddy carried her to bed. He smelled like sun on denim and old oil. When he kissed her forehead, it felt safe. "Night, little bean," he said. "Night, Daddy. You okay? You've been quiet. Just thinking about the city. You're gonna love it. Big place. Lots of lights." She nodded. He set her down and pulled the quilt up to her chin. She waited until the house went quiet, then got out of bed. Her nightgown brushed her shins. She could go to Mama. She could tell. But Mama's face was always tired lately. The back door latch clicked. She held it quiet and slipped through. The porch boards didn't scold. The yard was bright with the big moon. The sheets and the line hung still. The cottonwood shadow reached for her. She told herself she'd go as far as the clothesline pole, then she'd go back to bed. She stepped off the porch. Insects went quiet. The pump jack paused at the top, then came down slow. Halfway to the clothesline, she smelled wet wood. The smell belonged to the storm cellar after rain. It hadn't rained. The cellar door was closed. The padlock gleamed. The smell came anyway. Her bare feet were cold. The dirt that had been warm all day felt like creek mud. She looked down. Something moved under the dust. A ripple. Beyond the fence, something stood where the man had stood. The hat tilted, but it wasn't a hat anymore. It was the top of a skull. The brim was bone. The face was pale and unfinished. The eyes were like fish eyes left too long. "Kendra," it said. The voice came from the ground. She looked down. The red dirt had a seam in it, a thin black slit. The slit widened. Fingers came through. Too many, too long, white and smooth like candle wax. They groped for her. One found her ankle. The touch was cold. Not winter cold. Drowning cold. "Daddy," she tried to say. She yanked her foot. The fingers slid off but left a smear. The cold climbed. Her calf cramped. She fell on one hand and skinned her palm. Strings clung between the dirt and her hand. More fingers pushed through. Dozens. The hole widened. She could see down into black, wet earth that shouldn't exist. "Kendra!" Mama's voice from the doorway. The seam shut. The fingers withdrew. The smell vanished. The thing beyond the fence was gone. The pump jack went up and down steady. The insects came back. Daddy's boots pounded the porch, then the yard. Then he was there and she was gathered up in arms that made the world small. He was cussing, not at her, at the night. "I saw a man," she told his shirt. "He said my name." Daddy's heartbeat kicked hard. He put her on the porch rail and crouched. His face looked too big from this close. "What man?" She looked at the fence. The fence looked back quiet. She looked at the storm cellar. The padlock gleamed. "He didn't bend the grass," she said. Daddy stared at her. His jaw worked. Then he stood and walked out past the clothesline. He stopped in the cottonwood shadow. He turned his head toward the fence, toward the cellar. After a minute, he spat. When he came back, he picked her up and put his mouth near her ear. "We're leaving Friday. You hear me? We're gone from here." She nodded. Mama stood in the doorway, arms crossed, face pale. "What was it?" Nothing, Daddy said, but his voice said otherwise. Don't lie to me, Marcus. Daddy looked at the cellar again. We're leaving Friday. No arguments. Mama's face went soft and hard at once. She nodded, then took Kendra from Daddy's arms. Kendra watched Daddy through the window. He stood in the yard a long time, smoking, staring at the storm cellar. That night she dreamed of the storm cellar. In the dream, the door was just a shape the dirt made. A wet voice spoke under it. It said her name, said it again. When she woke, her ankle still felt cold. On Saturday, the road turned from pink to gray. In the side mirror, the cottonwood shrank to nothing. Mama fell asleep. Bubba sang half a football chant until Daddy told him to quit. Kendra pretended to sleep and watched the fence lines blur past. She didn't look back. The city rose up. Buildings tall as mountains, streets wide as rivers, lights everywhere. The noise never stopped. Kendra pressed her face to the window and felt small. Aunt Tricia's house smelled like potpourri and carpet cleaner. The walls were beige. The carpet was beige. Aunt Trish was kind of beige. She had 2 cats and 1 spare room with a fold-out couch that smelled like mothballs. You'll get used to it, Mama said. It's just different. At night, the city didn't go quiet. The lights stayed on. The cars kept moving. Kendra lay on the fold-out couch and listened to sounds that weren't cicadas or cottonwood leaves or the pump jack. The cold ring on her ankle stayed. She didn't tell anyone. She just learned to live with it. Years later, after the bottle years and the hollow years and the first clean breath, she would learn other names for what she'd seen. Haint, white, root thing. She would learn sigils and salts and how to listen without letting the room listen back. She would learn to cut and not flinch, to stake and not shake. But all that would come after. For now, the road hummed and the city signs came up, and the girl in the red dirt carried a cold ring on her ankle that no bath would warm. And somewhere behind, under a cottonwood that had outlived 100 summers, the seam in the ground opened and shut, practicing a word. Kendra. Chapter 1. The Hunter's Awakening. The wind off the Llano left grit on your teeth. Morning sun still low. Kendra Lockhart leaned on the hood of her Dodge Durango, steaming mug in one hand, thumb hooked through her knife sheath. The mug read Denton County Humane Society in fading blue letters. She hadn't been humane in years. The coffee was truck stop quality, burnt, bitter. She drank it anyway. Caffeine was caffeine. She'd been up since 3 a.m. when the dreams kicked in. Same dreams. Red dirt and cold hands and a voice that knew her name. 5 years sober and the dreams still came. Sobriety didn't kill the ghosts, it just made them sharper. Luna trotted the edge of the gravel shoulder, nose to the wind, half husky, half something else that made coyotes think twice. She looked up at Kendra with pale blue eyes, almost white in the right light. Sometimes Kendra swore the dog could see what she could see. "Yeah, girl," Kendra murmured. "I smell it too." Even over the diesel stink, the rot was there. Not roadkill rot. This was sweet and high, spoiled fruit left in the sun. The smell of blood turned to syrup. She flicked her cigarette into the dirt. Hadn't lit it, hadn't smoked in months. The craving never left, same as the other one, the one that said a bottle of Jack would smooth out the edges. 5 years sober. 5 years since the bottle stopped dulling the faces. 5 years since she stopped pretending she couldn't see what moved through the corners. The transition had been hell. Detox in a county facility that smelled like pine sol and failure. Nurses with tired eyes, shaking so hard her teeth cracked together. Seeing things she couldn't unsee, faces in the corners, hands reaching from under beds, the dead walking through walls. Turned out the dead had always been there. The whiskey just made them blurry. Sobriety gave them edges. After detox came the choice. Drink again or learn to live with what she saw. She chose the harder road, bought books on folklore and demonology from estate sales and occult shops. Learned the difference between a hungry ghost and a vengeful one. Learned which things could be killed and which could only be sent away. Learned that the door she'd opened as a kid in Oklahoma had never really closed. The wind hissed through mesquite. Under it, a sound. Low, wet, like someone blowing over the lip of a bottle. Kendra's hand went to her belt before her brain caught up. The knife was there. Always there. Bowie blade, 9 inches, etched with sigils she'd carved herself. The metal hummed sometimes when the dead got close. Her cell buzzed on the hood. The caller ID read Deputy Harlan. She let it ring twice before answering. Harlan was good people, one of the few who knew what she did. He fed her tips when the bodies started stacking up wrong. Lockhart. Got something for you. Old trailer off County 18. Fella says his cattle been going missing. Sheriff thinks it's coyotes. I think it's the other kind of coyote. Kendra had worked with Harlan for 2 years now. He was in his 50s, rail-thin, with a mustache and dark humor. He'd seen his share of weird. He didn't ask too many questions. Just pointed her in the right direction. You sure? Cameras caught something. Walked like a man, fed like it didn't care. Drained a heifer clean. No tracks. And Lockhart? Yeah? The rancher heard singing. Said it sounded like kids. The cold on her ankle pulsed. Phantom memory. Send me the coordinates. You still on the wagon? He asked. 5 years, she said flatly. Good. Don't want you seeing double out there. She hung up before the laugh could finish. Luna trotted back to the truck and hopped into the passenger seat, circled twice and settled with her head on the armrest. Kendra scratched behind her ears. Ready to work. Luna's tail thumped once. The road turned from asphalt to gravel, then to 2 faint ruts that disappeared into Johnson grass. The GPS quit a mile back. Out here, you navigated by instinct and landmarks. Water towers, dead trees, the angle of the sun. The trailer was pale in the distance, half collapsed, metal sides peeling. A water tower leaned behind it with faded "God is love" painted on the side. The paint had cracked and bled down. Kendra parked 50 yards back, grabbed her duffel, and slung the shotgun across her shoulder. Inside the bag were her tools, UV flares, silver rounds, iron nails, salt cartridges, and the blade. The shotgun was a Mossberg 500, modified. Shorter barrel, extended mag tube, custom shells. Buckshot didn't do shit to the thing she hunted. Silver worked sometimes. Salt worked better. UV light worked best. Luna padded beside her, ears up, low growl building. When Luna growled, you listened. The ground around the trailer was wrong. No tracks, no flies, no noise at all. Just that thick copper smell rising off the dust. She circled wide, scanning for drag marks. Nothing. The grass was bent but not broken. She stopped when her boot sank half an inch. She crouched. The dirt was darker here, wet. Blood, old but not spoiled, still holding its shape. She touched it with 2 fingers and brought them to her nose. Copper and rust and something sweeter. The blood was days old but hadn't dried right, hadn't attracted flies, hadn't seeped into the soil. It sat on top like oil on water. Luna, she whispered. The dog's hackles stood. Her eyes glowed faint blue in the shadow. The growl deepened. A sound came from the trailer metal creak, then a drag. Kendra unslung the shotgun and eased forward. The sun hit the trailer to show the door hanging by one hinge, a smear of black down the steps, fresh, still wet. The smell hit her before her eyes adjusted. Inside was a slaughterhouse left to bake. The windows were boarded. Light came through cracks in a bullet hole in the siding. The beam cut across a figure tied to a chair. The man had been skinned from the neck up. The flesh hung around his collarbones, slick and black with dried blood. His eyes were gone, the sockets empty. His mouth was open in a scream that had died hours ago. Kendra's pulse slowed, training kicked in. She scanned the room corners first, shadows second, ceiling last, movement behind the fridge. "Son of a bitch," she whispered. Something shifted in the dark, slow, wet breathing. She raised the barrel. "Come out easy." A shadow peeled itself from the corner. It crawled halfway upright, its limbs bent wrong, its skin was thin, veins pulsed blue-black underneath. The mouth was human once. The teeth were long as matchsticks, filed sharp, gums black with rot. It wore the man's face, not like a mask. The skin stretched too tight across features that didn't quite fit, eyes milky and blind but tracking her. "Still hungry," it said. Not a voice, just the shape of words through meat. Kendra fired once. The UV round hit center mass, flaring white-hot. The thing screamed. The sound was glass cracking underwater and a child crying and a dog dying in metal grinding bone. It stumbled back, clawing at its chest where the light burned. But it didn't fall. The UV rounds worked on the weak ones. This one had been feeding too long. It charged. She fired again silver, this time splitting its jaw sideways. Teeth scattered across the floor. It hit her full force. They crashed through the table. Splinters tore through her arm. The pain was sharp and immediate. The stench was overwhelming. The creature snapped for her throat, jaw hanging loose, tongue black and split. Luna hit it from the side, teeth sinking into the torn cheek. The creature shrieked and backhanded the dog into the wall. The sound Luna made cut through Kendra's chest. Rage white-hot. Kendra jammed the barrel under its ribs and pulled the trigger until the gun clicked dry. Light filled the trailer. The thing spasmed once, twice, then went limp, its head caved inward. Smoke curled from its skin. The smell turned to ozone. Kendra pushed the body off and crawled to Luna. The dog whimpered but stood, shaking off dust, one eye swollen shut but still glowing. Blood matted the fur along her ribs. "Good girl," Kendra rasped, pressing her forehead to Luna's. "Good damn girl." She checked the wound. Shallow, bruising but no broken ribs. Luna licked her face once and Kendra almost laughed with relief. The corpse lay twitching, bones cracking inward. She grabbed her knife and plunged it through what was left of its sternum. The black smoke hissed away. She stood there, chest heaving, blood in her hair. The body didn't look human anymore. Looked like something that had tried to be human once and failed. The skin was gray, the bones brittle. The face collapsed into ash and teeth. She'd seen it before. Vampires, not the Hollywood kind, the kind that started as people and got twisted by hunger and time. This one had been feeding for weeks, maybe months, long enough to forget it had ever been human. She pulled the knife free, wiped the blade on her jeans, and holstered it. Her hands were shaking, adrenaline crash hitting hard. She leaned against the wall and let herself breathe. Outside, the wind had changed. She could smell rain miles off. The sky was still clear, but the air had weight now. Storm coming. Kendra wiped the blood from her eyes and whispered, "Guess I'm back." The thing on the floor gave a final twitch. She didn't look down. She walked out into the heat, Luna limping beside her, and didn't notice the shadow stretching under the trailer longer than it should have been, moving against the sun. She called Harlan from the truck. "It's done." "Clean?" "Clean enough. Body's gonna need burning. Whole trailer, probably. I'll make the call. Propane leak." "Harlan." "Yeah? There's something else. This wasn't just one. The blood there was too much of it. Too many sources. Silence. Then a sigh. How many, you figure? At least 3. Maybe more. She looked at the trailer in the rearview mirror. This wasn't a lone feeder. This was a nest. Shit, Harlan coughed. Sheriff ain't gonna believe that. Sheriff doesn't have to. You got any other reports? Missing persons? Livestock kills? Anything weird? Define weird. You know what I mean. Papers rustling. Pen scratching. Got 2 more cattle kills west of here. Rancher says his dogs won't go near the back pasture. Found dead grass in a perfect circle, about 30 feet wide. Soil looks burnt. The cold on her ankle pulsed. Text me the coordinates. Lockhart, you just killed one. You need to rest. I'll rest when they're all dead. She hung up. Luna shifted in the passenger seat, head resting on the center console. The dog's breathing was steady. Whatever Luna was, it came with fast healing. Kendra had seen her walk off injuries that should have killed her. She scratched behind Luna's ears. You and me, girl, till the wheels fall off. Luna's tail thumped once. Kendra started the engine and pointed the Durango west. The sky was darkening, clouds building on the horizon. The storm was coming fast. And under the sound of thunder, something else, a whisper carried on the wind. Kendra. She gripped the wheel tighter and drove. Chapter 2, Blood and Bone. The smell wouldn't wash off. She'd scrubbed her hands twice at the sink of a gas station off Highway 380. The water came out pink, then clear, then pink again when she blinked. The fluorescent light buzzed and flickered. She looked like hell, blood in her hair, bruises darkening along her jaw, eyes red-rimmed and hollow. Quit staring, girl, she muttered. You're still alive. That counts. The bathroom smelled like bleach and piss. She splashed water on her face, let it run cold until her skin went numb. Her arm throbbed where the splinters had torn through. She'd pulled most of them out in the truck. A few deep ones remained. She'd deal with those later. Pain was something you got used to. Luna waited outside in the truck, muzzle resting on the open window. Her fur hit a shallow cut across the ribs. Kendra had cleaned it with whiskey from the emergency kit and wrapped it with gauze. The whiskey had burned in Kendra's throat when she'd taken a sip, not a drink, just enough to steady her hands. One sip, not a drink, not backsliding. She'd spit it out after, let it burn on her tongue and then spit it in the dirt. 5 years sober meant something, meant she'd fought too hard to throw it away. Outside, thunder was building, that Texas kind that rose from nothing and rolled across the plains. The sky had gone green at the edges, hail and wind and maybe a twister. She filled the tank, bought jerky, coffee, and a map. The cashier was a woman in her 60s with liver spots and a cigarette burning in the ashtray. She stared at the shotgun holster and said nothing. That was the thing about small-town Texas. You could walk in bloody and armed. As long as you paid cash, nobody asked. Storm's coming, the woman said. Yeah. You got somewhere to be? Always. The woman nodded. Drive safe, honey. Kendra almost smiled. Yes, ma'am. Her phone buzzed again. Deputy Harlan, she answered, wind pushing grit across her face. The storm was close now. It's done. You burn it? Down to dust. Silence. Then, that why I'm looking at a half-mile of dead grass out there. Soil looks cooked. Kendra frowned, sliding behind the wheel. Luna shifted to give her room. That wasn't me. Then you got yourself a problem. 2 more carcasses turned up west of there. Same drained look, no prints. And Lockhart. What? One of them was human. The call clicked off. Harlan had been a deputy for 23 years, started young, stayed because the county needed him. He'd seen his share of weird bodies that didn't make sense, wounds that looked like animal attacks until you measured the bite radius. He'd learned to trust his gut when the evidence didn't add up. Learned when to call Kendra and when to let the sheriff think it was coyotes. They'd met a little over 4 years ago in a bar. She'd been 6 months sober, nursing a Coke and reading a book on demonology. He'd recognized the look, the 1,000-yard stare, the way she scanned exits. He'd sat down. "You military?" Was Iraq or Afghanistan? Does it matter? He'd smiled. "Guess not. You looking for work?" She'd closed the book. "Depends on the work. The kind the sheriff don't want to know about." And that was that. He fed her tips. She handled the things that didn't belong on official reports. He paid her under the table, enough to keep her tank full and her gear maintained. He was one of the good ones, the kind who still believed in protecting people even when the things they needed protecting from weren't supposed to exist. Now he was calling her with news that made her chest tight. One of them was human. By dusk, she'd driven 30 miles deeper into nothing. The storm had split the sky in half. Lightning webbed the clouds. Red dust climbed behind the Durango. The rain hadn't started, but the air was thick with it. The ranch gate hung open. Beyond it, scattered bones, not bleached, fresh, slick, thrown wide. A steer's skull stared up at the sky, jaw missing, ribs lay in piles. The marrow was gone, the bones hollow. Luna whined low. "Yeah," Kendra said. He was right. She parked, grabbed her duffel, and crossed into the pasture. The grass was brittle under her boots. The air smelled wrong. Not just the blood, something under it. Burnt hair, ozone. The scent of lightning striking earth. She crouched by a ribcage half sunk in mud. The marrow was gone, sucked clean. The edges of the bone were smooth, polished. Something had licked them until they shined. She'd seen this before. Vampires fed on blood, but the old ones developed a taste for marrow. They'd crack ribs and suck out the insides. Something shimmered above the carcass. Heat waves at first, then a shape. For a breath, she saw hands, dozens of them, small and gray, reaching from air that wasn't there. Child-sized, fingers too long, joints bending backward, then gone. Luna barked, teeth bared, fur standing in a ridge down her spine. The wind hissed through mesquite. Kendra pulled a canister of salt from her duffel and poured a circle around the carcass. The salt hissed when it hit the ground, steam rising. She clicked on her UV light. The beam cut purple across the grass. At first, nothing, just bones and mud and shadows. Then footprints, luminous, circling the carcass in patterns that didn't make sense. Bare feet, child-sized. Too many of them, overlapping. "Not vampires," she whispered. The wind answered, "Not just vampires." She turned. Lightning flashed. The silhouette of an old windmill 50 yards out. Its blades spun, though there was no breeze. The metal groaned with each rotation. Something hung from one of them, long, limp, spinning slow. She moved closer, shotgun up. Luna padded beside her, growl steady, eyes glowing faint blue. The smell hit first iron and wet hay and something sweeter, flesh starting to turn. The thing hanging was Deputy Harlan, or what was left of him. His throat was a black pit, torn wide enough to see spine. His eyes had gone milky white. His badge was nailed through his chest with an iron spike, the metal driven deep enough to crack the sternum. Blood dripped slow from his boots. The sight hit Kendra like a fist. She talked to him 3 hours ago. 3 hours and he'd been alive, been fine, been making jokes about her staying sober. Now he hung from a windmill, body still warm, blood still fresh. Her throat went tight, her vision tunneled. She forced herself to look, forced herself to see the details. The throat wound was savage, claws, not a blade. 4 deep gouges through the carotid and jugular. He'd bled out fast, probably didn't even know what hit him. The eyes told a different story. They'd been carved out post-mortem, the sockets clean, no tearing. Someone had taken their time. The badge through his chest was the final insult, a message. We know who helps you. We can reach them too. Below him, the dirt pulsed, moved, rising and falling. Kendra's breath caught, her finger tightened on the trigger, the ground split with a wet sound. Hands poured out, gray and child small, dozens of them, hundreds, crawling over each other. They were boneless, faceless, skin stretched tight over smoke and nothing. Their whisper came as one voice. You opened the door. She fired. Salt rounds burst white, the air filled with light and screaming. The hand shrieked and melted, smoke pouring from where they'd been. She dropped another shell, chambered it, fired again. The recoil bruised her shoulder, but she didn't stop. Luna lunged, tearing through the edge of the swarm, her teeth ripping smoke and shadow, her fur haloed in ash, eyes blazing blue-white now. Back! Back, damn you! Kendra screamed, loading silver, firing into the mass. The hands kept coming. They climbed her boots, her legs, cold fingers wrapping around her calves. The touch burned. She kicked and fired and screamed. A shape rose from the center, tall, thin, stitched together from ribs and tongues and wet earth. Its frame was a nightmare of anatomy, bones bent wrong, skin stretched across gaps. Its head was the vampire from the trailer, jaw reformed but crooked, eyes hollow but staring. You thought one would stay dead, it said, voice like wind through bone. We remember who wakes us. We know your name, Lockhart. Kendra June Lockhart, born in Oklahoma, baptized in red dirt, marked when you were 6. The thing smiled with too many teeth. You opened the door, and we've been waiting. It stepped forward, the hands parted around it. The sky split open and rain poured down, hissing when it hit the dead grass. The lightning struck the windmill, and everything turned white. The windmill exploded, sparks and twisted metal, the blades spinning off into the dark. Harlan's body fell, hit the ground with a wet thud. The creature didn't flinch. It stood in the center of the storm, rain steaming off its skin, the gray hands writhing around its feet. Kendra's ears rang, her vision spotted white. Luna was barking, but the sound came through water. The thing tilted its head. You don't remember, do you? What you did that night, what you let in. I was 6 years old, Kendra spat, reloading. I didn't let anything. You looked, it interrupted, voice multiplying. You saw us when no one else could. You gave us shape. You gave us permission. The hand surged forward. Kendra fired. The salt rounds tore through them, but more kept coming. They climbed her legs, her waist, cold seeping through her jeans, her muscles cramped. Her breath came in gasps. Luna hit the creature low, teeth sinking into what passed for a knee. The thing backhanded her away, casual, effortless. The dog flew 10 feet and hit the ground rolling, yelping. Rage burned through the cold. Kendra dropped the shotgun and pulled her knife. The blade caught lightning. The etched sigils flared bright. She charged, screaming, and drove the knife into the creature's chest. Light exploded from the wound. The thing shrieked, staggering back. The hands around her legs released. She twisted the blade, felt it scrape bone, felt the wrongness of what lay beneath the skin. Not organs, not muscle, just smoke and malice held together by hunger. You can't kill what you made, it hissed, claws raking her shoulder, pain white-hot. Watch me. She ripped the knife sideways, opening the chest cavity. Black smoke poured out, thick and oily. The creature convulsed, its form flickering human, then monstrous, then something in between. The hands on the ground began to dissolve, screaming as they went. The thing's head snapped toward her, jaw unhinging. "We are Legion. Kill this shell and we'll make another. Kill 100 and we'll make 1,000. You open the door, Lockhart. You can't close what wants to stay open." It lunged for her throat. Luna hit it from the side again, bigger this time, heavier, her body glowing with that blue-white light. Her teeth found the creature's neck and ripped, tearing through smoke and sinew. The thing screamed, flailing, but Luna held on, shaking her head. Kendra grabbed the shotgun, loaded a UV round, and shoved the barrel against the creature's skull. "Tell the others I'm coming for them too." She fired. The head vaporized, light and ash. The body collapsed, folding inward, ribs cracking, spine bending backward until the whole thing was just a pile of smoking bones. The hands dissolved completely, leaving only scorch marks in the dirt. Then silence, just rain and thunder and the sound of Luna panting beside her. Kendra fell to her knees, chest heaving. Blood ran down her shoulder where the claws had cut deep. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the gun. She looked at the pile of bones, at the scorch marks, at the place where Harlan's body lay twisted in the mud. "God damn it," she whispered. Then louder, "God damn it." Luna limped over, whimpering, and pressed her head against Kendra's chest. The dog's glow was fading, back to normal, but her eyes still held that unnatural blue. Kendra wrapped her arms around her, buried her face in wet fur, let herself shake. The rain washed the blood away, but not the memory. She wrapped Harlan in a tarp from the truck bed. Couldn't leave him hanging there. Couldn't let the scavengers have him. He deserved better. His body was heavy and cold. Rigor hadn't set in yet. He'd only been dead a few hours. The spike through his chest took both hands to remove, the metal grinding against bone. When it came free, blood welled up fresh. Kendra had to look away. His face was peaceful, eyes closed, the milky white fading back to brown. Whatever had killed him, it had been fast. The throat wound was savage but clean. One strike. Straight through the carotid and jugular. He'd bled out in seconds. Probably didn't even know what hit him. She found his phone in his pocket, 37 missed calls from his wife. Kendra's stomach turned. Someone would have to tell her. Someone would have to explain why her husband wasn't coming home. It wouldn't be Kendra. She wasn't good at that part. She dragged the body to the truck and lifted it into the bed with a grunt. Her shoulder screamed where the claws had torn, but she ignored it. Pain was just information. Luna watched from the passenger seat, head resting on the window, eyes sad and knowing. Kendra covered Harlan with the tarp and tied it down. The rain had turned the dirt to mud, the blood to pink streams running between tire ruts. She stood there a moment, hand on the tailgate. "I'm sorry," she said to the body. "You didn't deserve this." The wind picked up. Kendra. She climbed into the truck, started the engine, and drove. She stopped at a payphone outside a closed diner 20 miles east. No cell service out here. The phone smelled like rust and cigarettes. She fed it quarters and dialed the sheriff's office. "Denton County Sheriff. This is Deputy Harlan CI. You need to send someone to the old Peterson Ranch off County Road 14. He's there. He's dead." Silence. Then, "Who is this?" "Doesn't matter. Just send someone. And tell his wife. Tell her it was quick. Tell her he didn't suffer." She hung up. Back in the truck, she cleaned her shoulder with whiskey and duct-taped gauze over the wounds. 4 deep gouges. Bleeding, but not spurting. She'd need stitches eventually, but that could wait. The kit in her duffel had everything she needed. She'd done field medicine before. This wasn't her first time sewing herself back together. Luna whined, watching her work. I'm okay, girl. Just a scratch." The dog didn't look convinced. Kendra finished bandaging, popped 3 ibuprofen dry, stared at the steering wheel. Her hands were still shaking. The adrenaline crash was coming hard. Her body finally realizing how close she'd come to dying. Again. Harlan's words echoed. One of them was human. The thing at the windmill had been a vampire. She was sure of that. The drained cattle, the bones, the way it had reformed after she'd killed it in the trailer. But the hands, the children euro, ooh, that was something else. Something older. Something that had been waiting in the dirt since she was 6 years old. You opened the door. She thought of Oklahoma, of red dirt and cold fingers and a voice that knew her name, of the storm cellar that always smelled like wet wood, even in drought, of the seam in the ground that had tried to pull her down. The door. She'd been running from it for 27 years, running from the memory, running from the cold ring on her ankle that never went away, running from the truth that some things, once seen, could never be unseen. But you couldn't run forever. Eventually, the things you ran from caught up. Eventually, you had to turn around and face them. Kendra started the engine, pointed the truck west toward the coordinates Harlan had sent before he died, and whispered, "All right then, let's finish this." The storm followed her, lightning striking the same patches of earth over and over. Chapter 3, Baptism by Fire. The second ranch was worse. She smelled it before she saw it, the sweet rot, the burnt hair, the copper and ozone stink that made her eyes water. The gate was open, hanging crooked on one hinge. Beyond it, the pasture was scorched black in a perfect circle, 30 feet across. No grass, no weeds, just charred earth and bones. So many bones. Kendra parked and stepped out into the rain. It had lessened now to a steady drizzle, the kind that soaked through clothes and settled in your bones. Luna jumped down beside her, hackles already rising, low growl building in her chest. The farmhouse was dark, no lights, no movement. The porch light swung in the wind. The bulb shattered. The front door was open. "Stay close," Kendra murmured. They crossed the yard slow, boots squelching in mud. The scorched circle was to the left, surrounded by cattle carcasses in various states of decay. Some were fresh, still bleeding, flies thick. Others were days old, bloated and split. A few were nothing but skeletons, picked clean. In the center of the circle stood a shape. At first, Kendra thought it was a scarecrow. Then it moved. It was a man, or had been. He stood perfectly still, arms at his sides, head tilted back to let the rain fall on his face. His throat was torn open, black blood crusted down his chest. His eyes were open but empty, pupils blown wide. He was dead, but he was standing. Kendra raised the shotgun. "Luna, behind me!" The dog obeyed, pressing against her leg. The dead man's head snapped toward her, too fast, joints cracking. His mouth opened and black smoke poured out, thick and oily. When he spoke, it was with a dozen voices. "Lockhart, you came. Who are you?" "We are the ones you woke. We are the door you opened. We are hungry." The ground around the circle began to bulge. Fingers pushed through the dirt, gray, child-sized, too many to count. They dragged themselves up into the rain, faceless and boneless, their whispers filling the air. "Hungry, hungry, so hungry." The dead man smiled, his torn throat stretching. "You killed 2 of us. We killed one of yours. Fair trade. But the door stays open, Lockhart. The door stays open and we keep coming. One by one, 100 by 100, until every grave in Texas spits out what it's been holding down. Kendra's finger tightened on the trigger. "Then I'll kill every last one of you." "You can try." The hand surged forward. Kendra fired. Salt, silver, UV. Everything she had. The rounds tore through them, scattering smoke and screams. Luna lunged, ripping and tearing, her teeth finding purchase in shadow flesh, but more kept coming, pouring from the ground. They climbed her legs, her waist, her chest, cold seeping into her bones, cramping her muscles, stealing her breath. She fired until the gun clicked empty, then swung it like a club. Breaking fingers, crushing hands. Luna was a blur of fur and teeth, glowing bright now, her whole body haloed in blue-white fire. The dead man stepped forward, slow and deliberate. Rain steamed off his skin. His torn throat whistled with each breath he didn't need to take. "You can't win this, Lockhart. You're alone. You're tired. You're broken. The bottle broke you once. Will break you again." Kendra dropped the shotgun and pulled her knife. The blade flared bright, the sigils burning. "I've been broken before. I got back up." She charged. The dead man's hand shot out, catching her by the throat. He lifted her off the ground, fingers cold as ice, squeezing. Black spots danced across her vision. The knife fell from her hand, hit the mud with a splash. "You should have stayed drunk," he whispered. "At least then you didn't have to see." Luna hit him low, teeth sinking into his thigh. He didn't flinch, didn't even look down, just squeezed tighter. Kendra's vision tunneled, her lungs burned. The rain sounded distant now, muffled. The cold ring on her ankle pulsed, once, twice, 3 times, phantom memory or something more. The fingers from Oklahoma, reaching up from red dirt, tasting her name. No. The thought came clear and sharp. No, not like this, not without a fight. She grabbed the dead man's wrist with both hands and pulled. The flesh tore, bones snapping. He dropped her with a scream, the first real sound of pain, and she hit the ground gasping. Luna was on him instantly, ripping at his throat, his chest, his face. The dead man staggered, swatting at her, but the dog was relentless. Her eyes blazed, her teeth glowing with that same blue-white fire. Kendra crawled to her knife, fingers numb and shaking. She could barely grip the handle. Her throat felt crushed, each breath a ragged wheeze. But she stood. She always stood. The dead man's head was half gone now, Luna's teeth having torn through skull and brain. Black smoke poured from the wounds, thick and choking. The hands on the ground began to dissolve, screaming as they went. Kendra drove the knife into his chest, right where the heart should be. She twisted. The blade scraped ribs, found the hollow space inside, kept going. Light erupted from the wound. White and searing, the dead man's mouth opened in a scream that had no sound, his body convulsing. She leaned in close, voice raw and broken. "I opened the door. Now I'm going to slam it shut." She carved the sigil into his chest, the same one etched on her blade. Circle, star, lines radiating out, her own blood mixed with his, hissing where they touched. The light grew brighter, hotter, until she had to look away. The dead man folded inward, collapsing into ash and smoke. The hands dissolved completely, their screams fading to nothing. The scorched circle began to smoke, the earth itself burning from the inside out. Then silence. Just rain and thunder and the sound of Kendra's ragged breathing. She fell to her knees, knife still in hand, chest heaving. Luna limped over, whimpering, and collapsed beside her. The dog's glow was fading, her fur matted with blood, some hers, most not. "Good girl," Kendra rasped, pulling Luna close. "So good. Best damn dog in the world." Luna licked her face once, tail wagging slow, then closed her eyes. Kendra sat there in the rain, holding her dog, staring at the pile of ash that had been a dead man possessed by something ancient and hungry. The knife was still warm in her hand, the sigils still glowing faint. The farmhouse door banged in the wind. She looked up. Something stood in the doorway, tall, thin, wearing the shape of a woman. For a moment, Kendra thought it was another one, another possessed corpse. Then the shape spoke. The voice was human, terrified, real. "Please," the woman whispered. "Please, help me. They took my husband. They took my children." Kendra's blood went cold. The woman's name was Sarah Brennan. She was 34, rail-thin, hollow eyes, hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Her husband was the dead man in the yard, Marcus. He'd gone out to check on the cattle 3 days ago and never came back. When she found him, he was standing in the scorched circle, just standing there. When he looked at her, his eyes were wrong. The children, 2 boys, ages 7 and 9, had disappeared the same night. Their beds were empty, windows open, no sign of struggle, just gone. Kendra sat at the kitchen table, trying to process, trying to think through the exhaustion and pain. Her throat was bruised, her shoulder still bleeding through the bandages. Every breath hurt. Every thought felt heavy. "Where?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. "I don't know," Sarah sobbed. "I heard them crying, heard them calling for me. But when I went outside, there was nothing. Just that smell. Wet wood. Kendra knew it without asking. The storm cellar," Sarah continued. "Marcus said he heard singing. Down in the cellar. He went to check, and when he came back up, he wasn't him anymore." The storm cellar. Kendra stood, legs shaking. "Show me." The cellar was behind the house, set into a low hill. The door was heavy steel, rusted at the edges, with a padlock that hung open and broken. The smell hit her before she even got close. Wet wood and copper and something sweeter. Luna growled, refusing to get closer. Kendra clicked on her flashlight and stepped down. The stairs were concrete, slick with rain and something else. The beam of light cut through darkness, revealing walls of packed earth and wooden support beams. At the bottom was a small room, maybe 10 by 10, shelves of canned goods, a cot in the corner, and in the center of the floor, a hole. Not a natural hole. This had been dug. Recently. The dirt was fresh, piled around the edges. The hole was maybe 3 feet across, deep enough that the flashlight beam didn't reach the bottom. Kendra crouched at the edge, shining the light down. The walls of the hole were lined with something that looked like roots. Pale, fleshy, pulsing. They moved slow, breathing, reaching up toward the light. At the bottom, maybe 15 feet down, she saw them. 2 small shapes, curled together, not moving. "No," she breathed. She called down, "Can you hear me?" Silence. "If you can hear me, make a sound. Any sound." Nothing. Sarah was at the top of the stairs, crying, "Are they down there? Are my babies down there?" Kendra didn't answer. She grabbed the rope from her duffel, tied it to the support beam, started to lower herself down. The walls were slick, the roots reaching for her as she passed. They left smears on her arms, cold and wet. Her boots hit bottom. The floor was soft, spongy. The air was thick and hard to breathe. The boys were there, lying together. Not dead, she could see their chests rising and falling, but not awake either. Their skin was pale, lips blue. When she touched one, his skin was cold as ice. "Wake up," she said, shaking him gently. "Come on, kid. Wake up." His eyes opened, and they were wrong. Milky white, pupils blown, the same look Marcus had before the voices took over. The boy smiled. Too late, Lockhart. We already have them. His mouth opened, and black smoke poured out. The other boy sat up, moving in unison. Same smile, same smoke. They spoke together. You killed the shells, but we're still here. In the dirt, in the water, in every grave you walk past. You can't kill us all. You can't even find us all. We are everywhere. The roots on the walls began to pulse faster, reaching toward her. The hole above was closing, the dirt caving in, sealing her inside. Kendra grabbed both boys and threw them over her shoulder. They were light, too light, hollow inside. She climbed one-handed, the rope cutting into her palm, the roots grabbing at her legs. The boys laughed in her ear, voices layered and wrong. You can't save them. They're ours now, just like you're ours. Have been since you were 6, since you looked and gave us shape, since you opened the door. She broke through the surface, dragging the boys with her. Sarah screamed and grabbed them, pulling them away. Kendra collapsed on the cellar floor, gasping. The hole below was filling with black smoke. It poured out, thick and oily, spreading across the floor. The smell of wet wood intensified until Kendra's eyes watered. Luna barked from the top of the stairs, frantic, desperate. "Get them out," Kendra rasped to Sarah. "Get them out and run." "What about you?" "I'll hold it off. Just go." Sarah hesitated, then grabbed her boys and fled up the stairs. Their laughter followed her. Kendra stood, pulled her knife, faced the smoke. It was rising now, taking shape, dozens of shapes. Children, gray and faceless, with too many fingers and joints that bent wrong. They crawled from the smoke. "You want me?" Kendra said, voice steady despite the fear. "You think you own me because I saw you when I was 6? Because I was too young to know better?" The children stopped, tilted their heads in unison. "I'm not 6 anymore," she continued. "I'm not scared. I'm not running. And I sure as hell am not yours." She carved the sigil into her palm with the knife. Blood welled up, bright red against the silver blade. She slammed her hand against the dirt floor and pushed everything she had, all the anger, all the pain, all the years of running and drinking and trying to forget, into the ground. The sigil flared, light erupted from her palm, spreading out in a circle, burning through the dirt. The children screamed, dissolving where the light touched. The smoke recoiled, writhing, trying to escape. "This door," Kendra said through gritted teeth, "is closed." The light exploded outward. The cellar shook. The wooden beams cracked. The hole collapsed in on itself, the roots withering and turning to ash. The children dissolved completely, their screams fading to nothing. Then silence. The light faded. Kendra's hand was still on the ground, blood seeping into the dirt. She could feel it, the door, the connection, the thread that had tied her to this thing since she was 6. And she could feel it snap. The cold ring on her ankle disappeared, just gone. For the first time in 27 years, the phantom touch was gone. She pulled her hand back and stared at the sigil burned into the dirt. It was glowing faint, pulsing. Then it faded, leaving only scorched earth. Kendra stood, legs shaking, climbed the stairs. Outside, the storm was breaking. The clouds were thinning, the rain lessening to a drizzle. Sarah stood by the truck with her boys, both of them wrapped in blankets, both of them breathing. The smoke was gone from their eyes. They looked normal now, scared, confused, but normal. "Are they?" Sarah asked. "They'll be okay," Kendra said. "Get them to a hospital. Tell them it was shock from the storm. Don't mention anything else." "What do I tell them about Marcus?" Kendra looked at the scorched circle where the dead man had stood. Nothing left but ash and rain. Tell them he loved them. Tell them he fought to protect them. Tell them he was a good man. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. Kendra didn't answer, just climbed into her truck, Luna settling in the passenger seat. The dog's eyes were normal now, just brown, no glow, no fire. She looked tired, felt tired. They both did. Kendra started the engine and drove. The Durango rolled east as the sun rose, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. The storm had passed, leaving the air clean and cool. The radio crackled with static, then found a country station. Some song about lost love and whiskey. Kendra let it play. Her shoulder throbbed, her throat ached, her palm was wrapped in gauze, the sigil still burning faint beneath, but the cold ring on her ankle was gone. For the first time in 27 years, she felt free. Not entirely, never entirely. The dead still walked, the things in the dark still hunted, but the door, the one she'd opened as a child, the one that had followed her all these years, that door was closed. For now. Luna shifted, resting her head on Kendra's lap. The dog's breathing was steady, peaceful. Kendra scratched behind her ears, felt the warmth of living fur under her fingers. Just you and me, girl, she said quietly, till the wheels fall off. Luna's tail thumped once. The road stretched out ahead, empty and endless. Texas was big, lots of towns, lots of places where the dead didn't stay buried. Lots of people who needed someone willing to look straight at the monsters and not blink. Someone like her. Kendra's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Got a job if you're interested. Missing persons. Abilene. Witnesses report seeing them after they were declared dead. Sounds like your kind of thing. She smiled. Grim, tired, but genuine. Yeah, it does. She typed back, send coordinates. The response came instantly. Stay safe out there, Lockhart. The world needs people like you. She almost laughed. Safe wasn't in her vocabulary. Hadn't been since she was 6 years old and looked at something she shouldn't have. Since she'd opened a door she didn't know how to close. But she'd learned. Learned to fight. Learned to survive. Learned that sometimes the monsters were real and sometimes the only thing standing between them and innocent people was a woman with a knife and a dog and 5 years sober. The road hummed under the tires. The sun climbed higher. Luna slept, snoring softly. And somewhere behind them, in the red dirt of Oklahoma, the cottonwoods stood alone. The storm cellar sat quiet. Padlock rusted shut. The seam in the ground was gone, filled in, forgotten. But the dirt remembered. It always remembered. And in the dark places, the cellars and wells and forgotten graves, something whispered her name, not in hunger, not in threat, in warning. Because Kendra Lockhart was awake now, sober, armed, and hunting. And the things that walked in the dark should have learned to be afraid. Well, boys and ghouls, that wraps up another terrorific tale from the vault. Ah, poor Deputy Harlan. How tragic, how unfortunate. Tried to help our girl Kendra hunt the monsters, but some favors come with a price tag written in blood. Got himself strung up on a windmill like a scarecrow, throat torn wide, badge nailed through his chest. And those gray children? They sang him lullabies while he bled out. Just how we love it. And Kendra, well, we learned don't fuck with Kendra or Luna. If this story crawled under your skin the right way, hit that subscribe button. New creature features drop every day at 8 p.m. Central, and trust me, tomorrow's even nastier. Leave a like if you're ready to ride shotgun with Lockhart and Valentine on their next hunt, and drop a comment, where are you watching from? What monster lurks in your neck of the woods? Have you ever seen something you couldn't explain? I'm always hunting for the next nightmare. Remember, some doors, once opened, don't like being closed, and some things that crawl through, they remember your name. Until next time, kiddies, keep your fires burning and your eyes on the trees. This has been your Late Night Creature Feature. I'm Mr. Wendigo, and the dead are always listening.